Welcome to the Bill Cartwright Show with Steve Cohen. Our special guest today is Chris Gerlufsen. Chris, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Chris, I am always amazed to find out a little bit more about the people that we have on. Can you talk about where you grew up? I know where you grew up, but talk about that a little bit. And I want you to talk a little bit about your mom and dad.
Sure. Well, for me, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a very sports fanatic city of Philadelphia. A great basketball town, but just a great overall sports town. And so I think from an early age, my love for sports and my passion for sports were kind of developed early. And Bill, I know with you being a diehard Cowboys fan, we've had our conversations about the Eagles-Cowboys rivalry, but, Philadelphia was a great city to grow up in, especially as just a young kid, loving the game of basketball. And my father was a longtime basketball coach, coached at the high school level and then at the college level for over 20 years. And so I've always been in the gym and been around the game since I was in basically diapers, and, just been super lucky to just be around the game of basketball. And my mother was a teacher. So I got to see the value of hard work, and, she was a teacher for 35 years in public school. And so just had a really good upbringing in that sense, and got to experience a lot of good things in the city of Philadelphia.
Hey, talk about where your dad coached.
Yeah, my dad. So he started before I was born, he was a high school coach in New Jersey, and then he was fortunate enough. I don't think this would ever happen anymore, but he went from being a head high school coach to being a head college Division I coach within 3 years, which is crazy. He was fortunate. He was a head coach at the University of Massachusetts. So at a young age, I moved and got a chance to be around Division I basketball as a young kid. And that was absolutely amazing. And kind of just stoked the fire in me to want to do this, and so I kind of, followed in my father's footsteps, and, was always around the game. My parents wound up getting divorced when I was, I think, 10. So I moved back to Philadelphia with my mom, but was always still around the game, and just lucky enough to see it at an early age.
Hey, talk about what kind of kid you were in high school. I would love to see that.
You know what? I wasn't a kid who got into a lot of trouble, but I was super competitive and super passionate about sports. And I think sometimes my mouth and my competitiveness got me in trouble, but I was just a kid who you name it. If you told me I need to drive 30 minutes to go get in a pickup game, or I didn't care what neighborhood it was in, I just wanted to be around the game. And really sports was everything to me growing up. I played basketball, baseball, football, soccer. I tried everything as a kid, and just loved being around sports in general and competing.
Talk about you're leaving your senior year, you're going off to college. What college did you select? I know. And why did you select it?
So, I was 150 pounds graduating high school, and I was a pretty good high school player, and had some opportunities to go to some Division II schools. And but I decided to go Division III route because I knew I wanted to coach, and I wanted to be around the guy who had won a lot of games, and somebody who could help me get into the business, when I graduated college. And so I went to a small school in Virginia called Randolph-Macon, and it's kind of amazing, kind of the band of coaches that have come out of just such a small school. And I was fortunate enough to learn a lot from the guy that I played for in college, who's unfortunately deceased now, but just learned a lot, and just, I don't know what made me go down to Virginia. I hadn't been to Virginia growing up, but, I'm super happy that I did make that choice, because it's impacted the rest of my life for sure.
Talk about the main thing that you learned from that. That's an amazing story that you knew you wanted to coach at such a young age, but talk about what you really learned.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I knew everything going to college, as a lot of kids do, and my coach was old school, and I learned the value of just discipline and hard work and what it really meant to prepare to win a game, and how much it went into winning, not just showing up on the day of the game. And it was an amazing experience. I could probably write a book about some of the stories, just, funny, not so funny. It was an experience for sure for a kid, from the East Coast going down to Virginia, and kind of being out of my element. But again, it's just something that has really shaped, my coaching career and who I am as a person.
Talk about your first coaching job.
Okay. I had a feeling you were going to ask me about this. So this is actually funny. So my first job, I just knew I wanted to coach. I didn't care where it was, what level it was. So my college coach called me into his office on a Friday afternoon in the spring of my senior year. And as you can imagine, most seniors during the spring of their senior year, they're worried about what they're going to do on the weekend and having a good time and all that. And he calls me into his office and he said, son, I need you to go to your dorm room and put on the only pair of suit you have. I need you to get in the car and drive 3.5 hours to Maryland to interview with a guy named Tom Finnegan. He was a Division III head coach. He wants to offer you a job. So I said, all right, coach, I'm going to do it. I had no idea where I was going or what I was doing. Jumped in the car. It was about 95 degrees that day, and I had this suit on. I'm sweating like a pig. But I get to this interview, and sure enough, guy wound up offering me a job. And, I made $1,500 my first year in coaching. And to me, again, the money was nothing. I just wanted to be around the game and learn. I had to work in a liquor store at nights to help me get by. And again, it's something that has really just kind of shaped, my path, and I wouldn't change anything for the world. It was an amazing experience. Something that, fortunate for me, it only lasted a year. I was fortunate enough to get a job, after my first year there, where that actually paid. But again, to just think about, the stuff that you do as a young guy, just wanting to get into the business, is pretty remarkable.
How old were you then?
I was straight out of college. So I was 22, I think, at the time, eating ramen noodles and whatever I could to scrape by at night, and working in a liquor store. But I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Steve would have liked the liquor store. So talk about your next coaching move from there.
Yeah, from there I went to again, a guy that was an assistant coach for me at the school I played for got a head coaching job in Texas at a school called Southwestern University. I had never stepped foot in Texas, and as a 23-year-old kid, he called me, said, I'd love for you to come and be my assistant. And I said, sure, coach, I'll be there. Just tell me when you need me. And I packed up a U-Haul and drove across country to Texas. And I'll never forget, it was 100 degrees, I think, for 30 straight days when I got to Texas. And I was like, had no idea where I was. But again, I was in Texas for 2 years, and it's funny, developed a lot of recruiting ties, and everywhere I've been since then, I've always had Texas players on the roster. And so it's just kind of funny how things kind of come, full circle and work out.
So you leave Texas. Mm-hmm. What's your next move?
So from Texas, I went to the Citadel, a military college in Charleston, South Carolina. Again, a young guy. And I think at the time I was one of the youngest Division I full-time assistants in the country, and worked my way up from being third assistant all the way to top assistant in a few years. And I think when I was 27 years old, I had the chance to coach a game. The head coach got kicked out of a game on the road. And so as a 27-year-old kid, I'm coaching the game, and he had to serve a suspension the next game. So I was fortunate enough to coach a game and win a game when I was a young guy. And that's something that I always think about to this day. It was a pretty cool experience.
Talk about Hartford.
Yep. So from the Citadel, I went to back to the East Coast and went to Hartford, Connecticut, and worked at the University of Hartford, and worked for two different head coaches. You're probably familiar. University of Hartford's known for Vin Baker. That's about the only thing they know about Hartford. But a member of the Dream Team, and it was a small Division I school, and was fortunate enough to be around two guys who are Philadelphia guys who I grew up with. And so it was nice to kind of be back in my element a little bit and be around guys that I grew up with in Philadelphia, and have a chance to work for them. And those are 8-9 years that, again, I just learned a lot and got to be around some really great basketball minds and really good basketball people.
So how do you get from Hartford to San Diego? Now that's a jump.
That's like going from hell to heaven. It was just by chance. Lamont Smith, who got the San Diego job, actually called me to talk about some prep school players in New England. Right after he got in the job, it was late in the spring, and they were just trying to, find some players to bring in. They had some scholarships left, and I had no idea that our conversation was going to lead to him offering me a job. We were just talking about players, and 2 days later, my boss at Hartford called me and said, "Hey, you need to pick up the phone. Lamont Smith's going to call you and offer you a job." And I was astounded. I had no idea. And so I had to think about it for about 30 seconds. My better half, she's been chasing me all over the country, and she grew up in Hawaii. So the chance for her to get back to somewhere warm was something that, she made the decision for me very, very quickly. But again, it's just, a random phone conversation led to me, being offered a job. And now I guess I'm considered a West Coast guy after being on the West Coast now this would be like my 9th year. So.
It was good of the head coach to allow you to leave, right? I mean,
for sure. No, that's John Gallagher is still the head coach at the University of Hartford, and I mean, we've known each other since we were 12 years old in Philadelphia, playing against each other, growing up on basketball courts, and so he knew at the time that was a right move for me, and pushed me to do it. And that's a testament to him and what kind of leader he is. But yeah, I think, anytime you leave anywhere, it's hard. And I've had a hard time leaving places because you kind of dig in and you establish relationships with the players and the people that you work with. And so it was nice to have your boss kind of nudge you to leave. So that's something that I'm thankful for.
Talk about how long you were at San Diego, and you ended up going to the ultimate place, Hawaii.
I did. I was at San Diego for 4 years. The first 2 years we were there was a rebuild. The program was not in a great place when we arrived, but we were fortunate enough to get it up and running. And, for the first time in program history, we won 20 games in back-to-back seasons, and made a first appearance for them in the NIT in my last year at San Diego. So that was something that I'm super proud of, is that we were able to go into somewhere and really build the program up and get it to a point where it was operational and back to winning. And from there, I went to University of Hawaii, and I was there for 2 years. The first season, I was hired the end of August, and I think somewhere right around October 20th, our head coach went on medical leave. So I was thrust into being the head coach after only being at the school for basically 2 months. And I coached the first half of the season. I think I coached 13 games. And that was an unbelievable experience for me. And then COVID hit, and everybody's world was thrown upside down. And the last year was a little bit challenging, and being on the island, during the COVID basketball season. But Hawaii is a special place. And again, my better half grew up there. That's where she was born and raised. So for her to be back home and be around her friends and family was pretty cool.
So talk about the next move, which was here,
Yep.
USF. Talk about how that happened.
So me and Todd, we've had a kind of special relationship going back to, when I came to San Diego. We would always see each other on the road, and we traveled to Europe on recruiting trips at the same time a few years. And it's kind of funny how you develop relationships with people through traveling, through work and through recruiting. And he was always somebody who I thought really thought outside the box. And we always had like in-depth conversations and talked about things that you wouldn't, talk to any old coach about. And we just had a really good bond and developed a really good relationship and friendship, really. And so we always kept in touch. When I went to Hawaii, we were still always talking. And when the position came open on his staff, he called, and, it really wasn't much of a decision for me. I have all the respect in the world for him, and I'm a little older than him, but, I just thought that we would really work well together, and I'd have a chance to come in and be a part of something special and help USF, do something that it hasn't done in a long time. And I really believe in the administration here and our coaching staff and the team that we put in place. So I'm super excited to be here, and just thankful for the opportunity.
We're going to go back to USF in a second. In your coaching career, talk about somebody we don't know who you felt was a really great player.
Wow. I mean, shoot,
Could be more than one.
Yeah, I could go down the list with that, but I'll talk about somebody who you probably do remember first. You probably remember Olin Carter, who was at San Diego. He was an all-conference guard at San Diego, and he was just this unassuming kid who came in with not a lot of accolades. We signed him late in the spring at San Diego, and he was just a guy who you never had to tell to do anything. He was a sponge. He just wanted to watch film. He wanted to be in the gym. He was just a consummate worker. His father, I think he gets it from his dad. His dad is a handyman in Dallas, Texas. And he just learned the value of hard work, and he just kept chipping away. And I never would have thought him as a freshman, he would wind up, he's playing in the G League now for the Texas Legends. And he's just a guy who just always got better, and was a pleasure to coach. There was no complaining. There was no anything. He never complained about a thing, and just kept his head down and chipped away. And he's a guy who I would say you always, from year to year, he made a jump and an improvement in his game. And he was just a pleasure to coach. And so I'm super thankful and happy for him that he's playing in the G League. But there's been a handful of guys that I could go down the list and say that about. Isaiah Pinero was another guy at San Diego who was a hell of a player, who's still playing professionally. And there's been some guys who, University of Hartford, I had a few, but too many to name. And I'm a guy who loves to stay connected and keep in touch with guys he's coached. So I know some guys are probably going to be mad at me that I didn't drop their name right there. No, it's been special. I've been fortunate enough to be around a lot of good players.
Talk about something a little different. When I was here at USF, we had great leaders. When I was a freshman, we had great seniors who put us in the right direction. Give me a couple of great leaders basketball teams you've been with.
That's a great question. That's something I want to think about for a second. From a player standpoint, I've been around a lot of really good leaders. I think one of the best leaders I've been around was actually a guy I played with in college, who was a teammate of mine and my roommate. His name's Sean McAloon. He's actually the head coach at IMG Academy in Florida now, coaching all 4- and 5-star recruits. But he was a guy who I think the best leaders are the guys who can lead by example, but also have a voice. And he was a guy who did that. And it's hard to lead if you're not working harder than everyone on a daily basis. And he was a guy who he practiced what he preached, and he just day in, day out, he just worked his butt off. But I could probably reference a lot of players that, on teams I've coached. This is my we don't even need to say what year this is for me coaching, but I've been around a lot of leaders and a lot of good players who've influenced a team in the right way.
Okay, and let's talk about our team this year. Are we excited?
Super excited. I'm sitting here while we're sitting here talking, I'm looking at our schedule right here because we have 4 games in 8 days coming up next week. And so I'm knee deep in the prep game right now, watching film on LIU and getting into Prairie View, and I have the Davidson Scout next Saturday. So this is the best time of the year. It's the best time of the year when you're excited about your team too. And I think we have a group, and I hope you can attest to this as well for, sitting at practice almost every day. But I think this is a really unique, special team that I don't know if USF's had a team like this, in recent history. And so I'm excited for the fans. Obviously, we're having no fans last year, for the fans to see, what we put in place. But I think it's going to be a special year for us for sure.
Stevie?
I was going to ask you about recruiting, right? I think that's something where you have to like it, right? Like in order to be a good recruiter, right?
Absolutely. No, that recruiting is a skill for sure. It's something that I think with experience and as you age and mature, it's something that you learn about. As a 22, 23, 24-year-old kid, I didn't know anything, but I did know that I was going to try to outwork people on a recruiting trail and really develop meaningful relationships. And at the end of the day, I think that's the most important thing, is being able to relate, connect with kids, connect with parents, and be able to talk their language. And I think that translates to coaching too. You need to be able to explain and talk to the kid and relate to him on a level that is going to make sense to him. It doesn't matter if I understand it. Kids need to understand it. And I think that's what a teacher does. But to me, again, everything is about the relationship piece and being able to connect. If you can connect with the kid and his parents, I think you can become a really good recruiter. But yeah, it's work, and it's something that, takes time for sure.
They have to trust you, obviously.
No, and yes, the trust factor, that means any relationship doesn't mean anything if there isn't trust. So from a recruiting standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, you have to gain the trust of the players, and then I think everything has a chance to really fall into place.
Let's talk about your family.
Yep. So my better half, she's born and raised in Hawaii. She's here with me. No children yet, but obviously that's hopefully in the works here pretty soon as I'm getting older. But yeah, I have a great family still back in the Philadelphia area. My mother is probably the biggest college basketball fan in the world. She texts me about random games. She'll watch any game on television and call and break it down for me. Yeah, just blessed to have a really good support system and family back in Philadelphia. I have three unbelievable nephews that I kind of see a little version of me and them growing up. They love basketball and love sports. So yeah, I'm super thankful for the people I have in my life.
Well, Chris, we are so pleased you were able to come on today. I do think we have something special going on at USF with both the guys and the gals. The gals' schedule's a little tougher, but I'm just looking for some great things to happen, and I think you are too. But thank you so much for being on. And I'm looking forward to see you down in the gym. And yeah, I do get down there every day. Hopefully we'll get Steve down there one day. He's a Michigan guy, so he probably hasn't learned a lesson yet.
Let's go, Steve. You're more than welcome anytime. Let's get you down here.
I would love it. Thanks, Chris. I'm excited to be at War Memorial.
Absolutely. It's been great having a chance to connect with you guys and talk, and always good to talk to a legend in Bill. So look forward to seeing you at practice, hopefully today, Bill.
I'll be there.